Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Kolkata. The nation is celebrating the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose, and it is my proud privilege to be joined on the broadcast by Anita Bose PFAFF, Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose's daughter, who joins us from Munich in Germany. Ma'am, a privilege that you join us on the show. Jai Hind, your take on Netaji's 125th birth anniversary being celebrated in India. Ma'am, is Netaji finally, in your view, getting his due in our country?
Well, it's hard to say what his due is. I think it is certainly very gratifying that he is still being remembered and loved and admired by so many of his countrymen. And the fact that many outstanding and many simple people do participate in remembering him and celebrating his birth anniversary is certainly very good. And I think if he were to know that, I'm sure he would be pleased about it, because after all, his country was his greatest love.
It indeed was, and the more we read about him, the more we realize that the risks that he took for India, the fact that he, went undercover from Kolkata to what is today Jharkhand, then Afghanistan, all the way to Germany, the submarine trip, his interactions. What do you, remember the most about your father, about Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose? How do you remember him?
Well, of course, I only remember him sort of secondhand from what I heard about him from others, because I was only a month old when he saw me last, and naturally I don't have any personal recollections of that.
Yes, ma'am.
For me, he was always a man of great dedication to a cause. You might say, even with a simple single-mindedness of purpose, his country was everything for him, and everything else, loyalty towards family, friends, his own safety even was secondary to him. He was ready and willing to sacrifice everything, including his life, for his country.
And he took grave risks. The manner in which he traveled to Afghanistan, didn't speak the language,
Yes.
The way he went to Germany, his interactions in Germany. You read extensively about him, stories that you heard. What inspired you the most? I mean, every speech of his that way is extremely inspiring, including the ones on Radio Berlin. But for you personally, ma'am?
I think it was a combination of things, of both of his attitudes, his ideals, but also his actions. I greatly appreciate, because I share his religious attitude. He was a devout Hindu, and yet at the same time he had great respect for all other religions, or you might say that should be the case in a Hindu. Unfortunately, it's not always the case nowadays, or even then. But I think this was a very important part of his personality. His dedication to the downtrodden, to the people who did not have the most outstanding and easiest position in life, was very important. And as a woman, of course, I do appreciate that he was a very modern man for his day and age, that he believed in the equality of rights and obligations of women. And of course, I think India has something ahead of itself. I mean, India had a female prime minister many years ago, but on the other hand, women's rights today
Yes.
Are not quite what they should be. And if India has the reputation of being the largest democracy in the world, one can be very proud. if India has the reputation of having the highest crime rate against women, this is certainly not something to be proud of, and my father would not have approved of it at all.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And as you very rightly point out, he was way ahead of his times. It's only now that we see women in combat in India. They're now becoming fighter pilots. The fact that they're in Corps of Military Police and so on. But we had the Rani Jhansi regiment in his times in the Azad Hind Fauj. So he was way ahead of his times. Or as Prime Minister Narendra Modi today said, he was truly a visionary, ma'am.
Yes, I think he was. If you read some of his articles,
yes, ma'am. Go on.
He really foresaw some developments which certainly did take place later on.
Oh, absolutely. Also, the fact that way ahead of his times, even he was such a realist, he thought about a strong country through a strong army. The fact that he got the Azad Hind Fauj together, saw through their training, various regiments that came up, the Chalo Dilli slogan that he gave, he knew that to be free from the British, you needed to be militarily strong, and he worked hard towards it, ma'am.
Well, it took a combination of many things. I certainly agree that at that time it was expedient also to take advantage of the situation that Britain was involved in a war and weakened by that. But of course, I think India had a rich combination of methods to fight for independence. I would not downplay the non-violent methods because, after all, they also inspired many movements outside India, sometimes with the misconceptions of what it was all about. But I certainly would not say it was only him alone who achieved that. I think he once said that without the INA, he was nothing, but some of the INA people said without him, we are nothing. So it is always a combination of both. A leader without following cannot be effective. So I think his strength was also that he could inspire people. And I've talked to people who said, I've seen him once only from a distance, but it made a great difference in my life. And I don't think you can say that of too many people.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And those people, especially, not just in India, but also overseas, the way people came and on one call, the fact that his Radio Berlin addresses were so popular, and not just in Germany, but they inspired people far away, whether it was in Japan or in Southeast Asia. And when he went to Singapore, the way people turned up to join Azad Hind Fauj, leaving everything. What quality of your father, in your view, drew people to him to sacrifice everything for his cause and make it common cause for India, ma'am?
Well, it's very difficult to say what makes a charismatic leader, but one aspect certainly was the case that he was genuine. He was a true believer in what he did, and this commitment was not just played. It was far too, I think, dangerous and complicated to be just show. So I think the fact that he was really burning for his country came across in his interaction with other people.
And being the realist, being the diplomat that he was, he did not agree with the ideology of the support of people he took, but he took their help to free India. And that showed how that fire to free India was burning so bright and so deep inside him, ma'am.
It was indeed. And I think he was so dedicated to that he could not envisage anything else but.
Yep, and he never gave up hope. Even when Japan gave up, when Germany gave up, he didn't give up. He said they may have given up. It's for them, but our cause is independence, and he continued to fight for independence till his last breath, ma'am. Did you believe that air crash theory, or did you not believe that air crash theory, ma'am?
Well, I'm fairly convinced that it is true, because I've been present in interviews with eyewitnesses, who were on that plane and survived the plane crash. And if you look at all the evidence that is available and became available, it was not available in 1950 because many of the documentation was under lock and key. But if you look at all that, this is the one most convincing story, and everything else like Gumnami Baba and other nonsensical stuff is just hearsay, and I might be and I could believe and so on, but there's no proof of anything of that.
And in your view, ma'am, what is that one thing, and clearly he's so vast a personality that there is no one thing that you can single out which is excellent about him or the way he should be remembered. But in your view, how should Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose be remembered by future generations?
I think he should be remembered as a essentially modern man whose actions were based in very positive values and sentiments, and he had a great dedication to a cause and great integrity.
Deeply evolved and involved with Indian philosophy, with the teachings of Swami Vivekanand, with Deshbandhu Chitranjan Das, the thinking of the Vedas and the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and taking it to a very modern outlook. Is that how you remember him? Someone who wanted a very strong, a very powerful, militarily, economically, socially, very strong India?
Well, certainly. He was a follower of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. And when he undertook anything important, he would always go to the temple in Dakshineshwar near Kolkata and pray there. And this was very much a part of himself. Even though he himself had very concrete ideas about how to shape the practical life of people. After all, he had learned to be a civil servant, even though he refused to become one. But he was also a mayor of Calcutta at one stage. He was very kept interest, in fact, in some of the municipal affairs of cities, and he would have done that at the national level too. He had sort of a blueprint in mind for the country, how to sort of develop India into a modern country to be able to advance in the world.
Truly. And when he formed the first government of India, that had an imprint of the India that he sought to make, militarily strong, its own intelligence network, its own mint, its own currency, its own systems. So he was putting systems in place for a very strong India, ma'am. Can you give us more details about what that India would have been like, or the India that he was thinking about?
Well, that's very difficult to say because, for one thing, my father was and would have been opposed to partition. And as we all know now, the process of
Yes.
partitioning the country was a very painful one. I mean, if you think of the hundreds of thousands of people who were killed, who were displaced, the atrocities that took place during that period, I think he would have been deeply saddened and shocked if he had still been alive to see that and not be able to prevent it. Just as Mahatma Gandhi was deeply shocked and saddened by these developments. I think he would certainly have tried to work for a modern, socially responsible country. I would not claim that he would have made everything better and different, but he certainly would have tried very hard to do that. And I imagine that he would have fought very hard to eradicate illiteracy and poverty. I think nowadays, in retrospect, we can say he could also not have prevented that or worked wonders. But maybe some dedication to these aims might have speeded up some processes, and maybe his example might have inspired people also to abstain from corruption, let's put it that way.
Oh, absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. Because, he led by example. He was inspirational. And that is something that we've also heard interacting with officers of the Indian National Army. Because then again, he was able to convince them. I mean, those were prisoners of war of British Indian Army. But he was able to convince them not to fight for the British, but to fight for the independence of India and a new dawn.
Yeah, and I think one should keep in mind that even though an army normally should be apolitical, it should not sort of make its own politics. But on the other hand, there's no reason why soldiers should not have values and ideals. And I think he imbibed the soldiers who had been prisoners of war to realize that they had a commitment to their country. And they were not just neutral people taking orders, which in effect, at least for the British Indian Army, as far as the army was composed of Indian soldiers, which was a great part of it, they had not been aware of, and suddenly they could take pride in their own country also and fight for something which meant something for them.
Which meant, you're absolutely right, it meant everything. And today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while he was at Victoria Memorial in Kolkata, he said the effort is to make the India that Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose would have been very proud of. And some examples that he took were a very strong army, both at the line of control and at the line of actual control. The effort that Atmanirbhar Bharat was happening, and several other steps. Would you say that the effort is to take the country in the direction of Netaji's dreams, an India of Netaji's dreams?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, not. I think he certainly would have envisaged a country which became modern and technologically advanced, and India is doing reasonably well in many areas of economic activity. So from that point of view, I think India is making advances in many areas, even though, of course, one has to accept that things don't always move as fast as one wishes they would. And certainly with attaining independence, you don't turn a page and all of a sudden everything works well. In a way, I would say the struggle for independence is an ongoing struggle which continues in all countries, in the sense that all the countries have to meet new challenges. And as far as democracies is also defend bureaucracies, we have just been able to observe that even in one of the oldest democracies in the world, USA, many of the things were not absolutely certain and secure. So living in a human society is always an ongoing effort to improve the circumstances of that society. I'm sure what he would not have approved of is the relationship to Pakistan. I think if he had been around, he would have worked to, if he could not prevent partition, to better the relationship with Pakistan. And I think he might have been successful in that. And the other thing is, as far as the religious relationships between the different communities, certainly it did not take a development that he personally would have worked for. Or if you are optimistic, haven't gotten to the point where he would have had been satisfied with that.
Oh, absolutely. It's work in progress. And I hope, India becomes the India of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose's dreams. And the fact that people are increasingly reading so much more about him, learning so much more about his vision is so simply amazing. Anita Bose PFAFF, as always, ma'am, many thanks for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast as we celebrate the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. We need to slip into a quick break at this stage, but before we take a break, I want to leave you with those